What if you could use advertising to earn you big, pearly white links? I asked myself this question when I started up my own business, because the problem I have is that my clients are small, they don't have a lot of budget, and I don't have a lot of time to earn big and find really scalable ways to earn good links without reverting to old, crappy tactics. And where's the clicker? There we go. And the answer is yes, you can. So I'm going to be talking about how you can use native advertising to earn big links. My name is Pete, Director at Kaizen. We deliver search and content marketing strategies for small to medium businesses. Native advertising lets you promote your branded content to people who will instantly fall in love with it, as they are targeted based on their interests. And this industry is now becoming huge. It's expected that this year alone, $2.7 billion will be spent on many different forms of native advertising across articles, images, and video, and you can even use it in video games and all sorts of stuff. This is a really good infographic I'd recommend checking out because it actually gives you a really nice overview of all the key native advertising platforms that are out there. But I just want you to focus on two particular types of native advertising that have worked really well for me. First, content advertising, which is where you can advertise your content as a related link on the bottom of news articles like sites like CNN and Mashable. And social advertising, which is where you promote your content in users' news feeds. And this is what it looks like. Here at the top, you can see an article about travel being advertised in the Huffington Post via TABOOLA. Your links go in the little box on the right here. And at the bottom, you can see an article in and around charitable causes being promoted on Twitter. Why is native advertising awesome? Well, it's cheap. If you do it right, you can do it on a shoestring budget. It's only about half a zloty for content advertising on a pay-per-click basis. And also, it's a really clever way to drive really relevant, targeted traffic to a piece of content. And if you do it right, this can earn you big links that have the Matt Cutts seal of approval, you could say. Why? Well, all the native advertising does is give you exposure, and that in turn leads to really targeted traffic. And I found that traffic acts as a catalyst for shares, and off the back of it, really good links. So I wanted to find out, could native advertising lead to a correlation of shares and links? So remember, correlation's a big word. I ran 6 different campaigns, each on a different network, on a relatively small budget. And no other outreach tactics were used, so I felt it was a fair test to see whether or not this is really working. And I measured it all on a cost per link and a cost per share basis. You can do this really easy using the Shared Counts API, which will let you easily track social shares, and Majestic SEO's bulk backlink checker. The first campaigns I ran were with content advertising. Now, content advertising, you pay on a per-click basis. So there's lots of different providers of content advertising, and the idea is that you're supposed to pick the right one that matches your pieces of content. And I give examples of that as I go through. The first campaign I ran was on OUTBRAIN. Now, OUTBRAIN is great if you want to dip your toes into native advertising, as it's only got a really low minimum spend of 30 zloty. And also, it can be completely self-managed online. Now, to do it, you've got to hack it a little bit. So you've got to sign up on outbreak.com and give them a US address, but you can actually give it your own credit card details and stuff, and it works out fine. If you do it in any of their markets, because they're getting started out, like in Poland, someone will just try and sell you some sort of massive campaign. So don't bother, just do it the cheating way, you can still do it. And the first campaign I set up was for my food client. I think the clicker's run out of battery. There we go. For my food client, the lazy hostess, it looks really scary, that massive picture of her up there. And she was basically launching a new book. So she created a series of 15 recipes that we promoted through OUTBRAIN. Now, OUTBRAIN has a lot of food publishers, and obviously she's a well-known food author, so I thought this was going to do great. It was good content being advertised in the right place. And I thought it was going to earn me a ton of links. But it failed massively, and ended up looking a little bit like this lady. And of course, my client asked what went wrong. Well, let's look at the statistics first. For 1,500 zloty spend, it earned 1 sale of the book and 1 domain link that was no follow, and 56 social shares. Now, remember, I'm not focusing on the traffic here. I'm focusing on whether it's earning me links or not. And what I found is actually when I took a step back and looked at the piece of content, it was crap. The raw content in its written form was okay, but it was being surrounded by all this awful, distracting call to actions by the book, that horrible picture of her. The user's attention wasn't focused on the piece of content, and they had no real easy way to link to it or share it. So I went back to the drawing board for my next campaign, which is for Two Little Fleas, who are a bingo affiliate based in the UK. And we did a video playlist of marriage proposals created from YouTube. And this time we hosted it on a completely separate landing page of its own look and feel. On here, there is no corporate branding whatsoever. The only mention of Two Little Fleas is a little logo down at the bottom. And also, each element of the content was boxed up. So it's nice and easily digestible, and the user's attention is completely on the content. Also, we had an embed code at the bottom, so people could easily copy and paste an iframe version of this list. And I ran it on TABOOLA. Now, TABOOLA is perfect for this sort of client because they have a lot of lifestyle and entertainment sites in the books. The issue with TABOOLA is that they do have a minimum insertion order of 3,000 zloty, which can be quite high, but you can split that across multiple clients and multiple campaigns. So I ran this campaign for just over 300 zloty, so it's a lot more cost efficient that way. So we ran it, and well, I wasn't feeling that great after what happened last time, but something then really interesting happened. It got a link off the Huffington Post, which is a massive US publisher and UK publisher. I'm not sure about here, but it's a big link. And it also got covered on 12 other sites, meaning we got 13 links, which is a cost per link of only 30 zloty. Now, 5 years ago, it used to cost me more money to buy a SEO directory link than that. So it's pretty good value for money. And it also earned over 500 shares. So the next campaign I ran was for a technology client called Tenzig. They sell computers in the UK, basically. And about 2 months ago, Microsoft finally ended support for Windows XP. And I put together a very simple countdown clock, counting down the days to it. And we ran it on NRELATE. Why? Well, NRELATE has a lot of technology sites in the books. So the key point here is you match up the right content advertising provider based on the portfolio of sites that they have. So NRELATE Technology has cnet.com on there, and this is a technology piece. Similar to TABOOLA, it has a minimum insertion order of 3,000 zloty, but this can be split over multiple campaigns. And we ran it, and it did even better. It got 19 domain links, a slightly higher cost per link, but who cares, and a good number of social shares. So at this point, I wanted to see if I could try something different, because native advertising, its intention is to send really targeted traffic. It's not supposed to be used for link building, and it doesn't always work. So I wanted to remove some of the risks. So Samantha is quite an interesting platform, because what it does is it will suggest your content as a related link to bloggers while they're writing their posts. So here you can see an example for British Airways, a travel article, and British Airways' content is advertised in the right and on the bottom down here. The idea is that a blogger will editorially link to the content. It's important to note that the blogger is not paid for these links. What you pay for is the impressions, the advertising of the content. You pay on a CPM basis. The issue with Samantha is that it can be a complete goldmine or absolute crap. I have had completely mixed results of this, and that's largely down to the facts and the way in which some blogs are better than others. You have no control. You can't say that I want to advertise on PR-free only sites that in travel. It's completely up to the blogger whether they editorially link to you. So where I've had success is in the B2B tech and personal finance niches, but on the consumer side, not so much. Samantha has the highest minimum insertion order of 3,000 zloty, but what I'd bear in mind is that the risk is much lower here. Your money's going into something where you can earn the links more directly. So the first campaign I set up was for HISCOX, who are actually the main competitor of Simply Business that Phil was talking about earlier. So we fed through 100 of their B2B themed and startup themed blog posts. Now, Samantha advised the number of 100. If you put through 100 blog posts, you'll get the most effective spend for your money because you're casting the net wide, let's just say. And it worked really well. We earned 42 domain links, which is really good, and about half of them were above PR3, so I was pretty happy with that. The cost per link slightly higher, but hey, it's good value. I also ran some tests in social media advertising. So first up, Facebook. I recommend if you're going to use Facebook advertising, you use their page post ads, which is where you write a post on your client's brand page and then you promote it using their targeting feature. And Facebook's targeting is creepily good. You can target people by their age, their sex, their location. Mark Zuckerberg knows everything about everyone in this room. And to put the case in point, I had a look to basically see how many men in Warsaw over the age of 18 have liked the Justin Bieber Facebook page. And apparently it's 33,000 people. So Facebook, you pay on a pay per engagement basis, which is basically every time someone either clicks, shares, likes, or comments on your ad, you pay, basically. And it has a really low minimum spend. So you've only got to do a minimum spend of 3 zloty, and it can be completely managed online. The campaign I ran was again for Two Little Fleas. They made an image gallery, which the idea of it is to inspire people to do kind things. And the way in which we set up the targeting is we targeted people who followed UK charities. And basically we ran it, and it sucked. We got 0 links and 15 shares. That's a cost per like of 30 zloty. That's really expensive. And, I was feeling pretty grumpy because, even since I've done this initial campaign, I've ran Facebook page post ads at least 4 to 5 more times, and I've never been able to really get them to efficiently work for this purpose. A lot of the time I see that the likes come from people who are already fans of the page or reshares of that. I think that might largely be down to the fact that Facebook is a closed platform, so you don't get that exposure from other parts of the network like you do on Twitter. Twitter, again, you pay on a pay-per-engagement basis. This is a look at the dashboard here. The differences on Twitter is that the targeting works by either targeting keywords people have recently used in their tweets, or you can target an account's followers. This is really interesting because it lets you get on the radar of people who are influencers, so you can target their followers. Again, self-managed online, really low minimum spend. The asset that I ran was an infographic that was top 10 books for entrepreneurs. Now, this is a subject that's really close to my heart. Now I run my own business. And what we did is we targeted each of the authors that are listed within this piece. So 10 authors, each with obviously an influential fan base. So it meant we got some really good targeted traffic. And it worked really well. We earned 17 domain links, low cost per link again. But what was interesting is, a bit like Facebook, the number of tweets I earned was actually really low. But because Twitter is an open platform, it acts as a catalyst for a lot more social shares. So although we paid for 21, we earned 1,200 more. In my opinion, that's really good value for money. Now, at this point, I felt like I got things pretty much nailed. I knew which content advertising platforms and social ones were crap and really good. But fundamentally, I didn't really understand why this was working. I was just running tests, and off I go. I was learning as I went along. I mean, after all this really was a simple video playlist, nothing magical. It's not that special piece of content. And this is something I got made off peopleperhour.com for £50. Not earth-shattering content, really. But then I realized, the content didn't need to be some great magical idea. I just needed to package it up really, really well. I knew that if I had a clickable, shareable headline, clever formatting, and I encouraged people to link to the piece of content, I could win at this. What do I mean? Well, first up, headlines. This headline was written in 1926. It was one of the very first advertorials ever created by John Campbell for the US School of Music. It's powerful because it strikes emotion, it makes you curious, and you want to read more about what happened here. I don't know if you see the same sort of trend here, but especially in the UK and the US, these sort of headline formats are now used everywhere. It's ruined the internet for me. Now when I'm on Facebook and I see a headline like this, I don't want to click on it out of principle. But this is how sites like Upworthy build their success. Upworthy A/B tests 26 different headline variations before settling on which one to run with. That's really interesting. The reason they do it is because they want to understand which headline will drive the most traction in terms of social shares. Then they'll settle on that headline, and then I'll run with it, and then come the traffic. These headline formats have worked best for me when I've been putting together my content. Also, which is interesting, most people don't read content on the internet. They just scan read it first, and then 16% of them will actually bother to read the rest of it. So you've got to work really hard to grab a user's attention. For me, what has worked best to grab their attention is lots of little formatting details. Now, I know this might sound like common sense, but it's so surprising how people ignore it. Using lists. BuzzFeed has built their entire business off lists of everything. And lots of subheadings and visualizing each point, so you're grabbing their attention, you're getting them in, and then they bother to read the rest of what you've written. Paragraph breaks, really important for long-form pieces of content because it doesn't overwhelm a user when they're scanning through. And I won't mention the basic text formats. Also, you've got to make things link-worthy. Always have a HTML embed code. BuiltVisible.com have a really good embed code generator you can use. The reason why it's important is that you don't need to have a second version of the infographic that costs you double the budget. It could just be an iframe or a simple image thumbnail that when people copy and paste that code, it's just an image, and at the bottom it says, click here to read more. That's an instant link that you're getting back to the site. And also I found that bloggers and journalists, like me, they're a little bit lazy and they just want to make it easy. Also, use open graph tags. These were mentioned a little bit earlier, but they're a really powerful way to pre-populate social share buttons. On ogp.me, you can find out more about the tags to use. It's also worth signing up for Twitter cards, because that will let you have rich media on Twitter. You've got to get it approved first, but it will really significantly increase your click-through rate. Also, incentivize people to share your content. You can use something like rafflecopter.com, and you can have a share to win mechanic in place. The idea is that someone's going to share your content to enter a competition. Or pay with a tweet, which makes a user tweet out a message before they get to download that piece of content. The key takeaways you want to have is fail fast. This is not going to work the first time you try it. I made the mistakes, and I had to pick up and learn and go along. Follow all the design and formatting tricks that I mentioned, and also make sure that you measure everything. Make sure you have a cost per link and a cost per share target in place. Measure your page flow, your bounce rate, and time on site in your analytics platform. And ultimately, strip away the non-performing pieces of content fast so that you can upweight the ones that work really well quickly. Thanks so much. That's it.